Scrolling through TikTok, I stumbled upon an old box of my grandmother's photo albums, buried deep in the attic. The first image was innocent enough, a sepia-tone portrait of her as a young woman, standing stiffly in front of a dilapidated barn. But as I flipped to the next photo, something in the background caught my eye, a blurry figure standing in the shadows. I squinted, telling myself it was just a trick of the light, but a cold shiver crept down my spine. As I continued through the album, the figures grew more defined, inching closer to my grandmother with every turn of the page. The more I looked, the clearer they became, men and women dressed in old-fashioned clothes, their faces frozen in expressions of sorrow and rage. I couldn't explain it, but they seemed aware of the camera, and more disturbingly, aware of me. My heart pounded as I realized they were getting closer to her, almost reaching out. With my curiosity piqued and fear building, I began to search for any information about the photos, wondering if my grandmother had ever mentioned these eerie companions. Desperately, I combed through her old journals, piecing together the fragments of her life, but nothing could prepare me for what I would find. One journal entry stood out, dated just before her death. She wrote about dreams that haunted her, shadowy figures that whispered her name. She believed they were the spirits of those who had lived hard lives, whose stories were forgotten but whose souls lingered. She felt compelled to capture their essence, to keep them alive in the only way she knew how, through her lens. As I read her words, I felt a pang of fear and a twist of understanding. These weren't just photographs, they were windows, and she had unknowingly invited them in, binding their fate to hers. In a final act of courage, I decided to put the album away, to sever the ties she had unknowingly formed. But as I closed the cover, I felt a sudden chill, and the room seemed to darken. In my peripheral vision, I caught a glimpse of movement, a ripple in the air that seemed to beckon me to look back. Against my better judgment, I flipped to the last page one final time. My breath caught in my throat. There, in the background, the figures were no longer reaching for my grandmother, they were reaching for me.